The best freeware image editing software is GIMP, which stands for New Image Manipulation Program. It is an alternative to Photoshop that you can download for free on your computer and customize with various add-ons. It is remarkably deep and versatile. We're going to explore a little of what it can do. When you open up GIMP for the first time, you'll notice that you have a main canvas and two floating menus, your toolbox and layers and brushes. The canvas is blank, so the first thing we're going to do is to create a new image. Go to File and select New. A pop-up appears that allows you to change the properties of the image. So I'm going to create a template for images to appear on my iPad in landscape mode, which is 1024 by 768 pixels. You'll notice you have a number of different measurements to employ depending on how you'll use the image. I'm going to change the dimensions now. Don't worry, you can always change the canvas size within the program at a later time. You'll notice the default pixels per square inch. For material that will appear on the web, you should leave the default setting at 72 pixels per square inch. If you're going to actually print the image, then you need to change this to a much higher number, probably around 300 pixels per square inch. You can do this by opening up the Advanced menu. One last thing to notice, GIMP processes images in RGB, red, green, blue, rather than CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. In simple terms, RGB is based on light, the way computers create color, and CMYK is based on pigment, the way painters mix colors. If you import an image based on CYMK, then it will have to be saved as RGB. They are not completely interchangeable, however. This is a liability for GIMP when it comes to print. If you're doing professional print work, you should probably bone up on Photoshop. However, RGB is perfect for the work appearing on the web. Once we've created the canvas, we can start working with tools. First, notice that there are two color blocks at the bottom of the menu. Here, black is the foreground color and white is the background color. If you double-click the swatch, the color menu opens. You can use your mouse to select a new color, use the eyedropper tool to select a color from your image, or add the RGB numerical designation if you know it. Clicking OK places that as the new foreground color. You can do the same with background color. If I wanted to replace the white background with a more vibrant color, I could use the bucket fill on this layer to switch to the new foreground color. Once you click on a tool, your mouse will operate that tool when you hover over the canvas. You see the little bucket fill icon as your mouse pointer? Be aware of this because it's easy to forget what tool is selected when you're editing an image. Now let's look at some tools. Let's first create a color gradient that you'll often see in computer graphics. First, let's double-click on the gradient fill icon. You can modify tools by double-clicking and then changing preferences, which is crucial for some tools such as shapes or gradients. First, let's choose the shape of the gradient. You'll see that you have a number of options. You can also change the direction of the colors from foreground to background and vice versa. Well, this is all I'm going to do now. We'll look at some of the other features such as mode in later tutorials. Now I will draw a path and release the mouse. The radial shape allows you easily to see how the length of the line changes the gradient. It's very intuitive. Now let's add some shapes. First, however, we need to add a new layer. You want to work in layers so that you can easily edit details without altering your original image. Imagine that you have uploaded an image of your cat to work on. Your background image will be your cat, but then you can add new layers without affecting the original image. So let's go over to the Layers Brushes menu and right-click in the Layers box. Select New Layer, then a pop-up appears. You can name the layer, which can be important when you're dealing with multiple layers, then alter its size and determine its color. You can also create a transparent layer, which is what I most often do in complex editing tasks where you want to work with transparent overlays. You will see that you now have the new layer selected. Any work you do on the main canvas will be on this layer unless you choose another layer. If you have lots of layers, you can easily get confused about where you are. You might be trying to erase something that won't erase, for example, and most often that's because you have the wrong layer selected. So now I'm going to select the rectangle tool. I then draw a shape by holding the mouse button and dragging, then releasing. You will see the shape defined by the ant trails. You can drag the corners to resize the area. To fill in the shape, you would right-click to open a menu, then select Edit, then fill with either your foreground or background color. Notice that your menu options are pretty extensive, as you can manipulate the shape in myriad ways. I can also move it around the stage. If I click the canvas, the ant trails disappear and the box appears on the layer. Now it's no longer so easily movable. Now I'm going to alter the opacity of the box so it's transparent. This is done on the Layers menu. If I had wanted rounded corners on my box, or feathered edges, for example, I could have selected those attributes by double-clicking the icon. If I wanted a perfect square, I could fix the aspect ratio at 1:1. This is a very useful alteration, particularly with the ellipse tool. You will often find yourself wanting a perfect circle, not a crummy attempt at a perfect circle. After you've created your object, you can move it around by selecting the Move tool and moving the entire layer, dropping the object where you want it. Now I will add some features with the Brush tool. The Brush tool allows you to paint with colors and simulate different brushes, some with hard edges, some with fuzzy edges, some held at different angles and with different sizes. You also have the ability to use custom brushes for special effects. If you start to use brushes in sophisticated ways, you can download brushes from the internet and integrate them in GIMP. In addition, brushes can be used as erasers as well, so you can erase a solid color with a sand dune brush, for example, rather than applying a brush with a color. One final thing about shapes. You can use them as selection tools, then use other tools to edit the selection. For example, let's create a circle. I then select the gradient tool to fill the shape. I could also simply delete the shape to create a negative image. You've progressed pretty far already in this tutorial. You can create a new image, work with colors, add shapes and layers, and use brushes to create stellar effects. You've now got a solid foundation on which to build.